Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello Scooby-Doo fans, and welcome to my Season 1 Episode 13 review of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? You guys definitely enjoyed Episode 12's review, so I'm very glad to see that, and I'm glad to see the uprise in my subscriber count. And last time I continued my playthrough of the 2018 Spider-Man video game with the release of Part 7 of my Let's Play, which will probably be up like yesterday, like the day before this is uploaded. Today I will be covering Season 1 Episode 13 of Scooby-Doo Where Are You, titled Which Witch is which was released on December 6, 1969. And Jesus Christ, is that a tongue twister. I mean, man, how many witches can you have, especially in this title? The short synopsis of the episode is that after coming home from a fishing trip, the gang run into a witch and a zombie who have been haunting the swamp and scaring everyone off. Now, from what I understand, most Scooby-Doo fans tend to be on the middle and think this is an average episode. It's not a huge one with many fans. So, let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? The episode begins with the gang returning from a failed fishing trip and taking a shortcut through a dark, creepy swamp. They pull over to ask directions from a man with a lantern on the side of the road, but Shaggy and the rest of the gang quickly realize that this man is a zombie. So they quickly speed away and they find a general store nearby. Inside the store, they meet a man named Zeke, who tells them that the zombie was conjured up by a witch that lives in the swamp with her magical voodoo powers. Zeke then goes on to explain how he and his partner Zeb saw her conjuring the zombie while hunting frogs in the swamp 6 months ago. Now smelling a mystery on their hands, Fred tells Shaggy and Scooby to head to the house of Zeb Perkins to try and find clues, while Fred, Daphne, and Velma stay to fix the mess Scooby made after eating some jumping beans. When Shaggy and Scooby go to Zeb Perkins' house to investigate, all they find is a voodoo doll of Zeb in his bed, and fearing the worst, they hurry back to tell the rest of the gang. The rest of the gang then quickly get into a boat and follow the witch and zombie after spawning them on another boat. And they go through the swamp until they reach the witch's shack. Upon entry, they find voodoo dolls of themselves, all except Scooby, I might add, which is pretty crazy. But when Shaggy thinks he's been voodooed by Scooby, who pokes them on his back, Fred points out that he just backed into a fork, proving that the voodoo dolls are probably not real. The witch then appears out of nowhere and arrives and warns them to leave after they've ignored all her warnings and signs out in the front of the shack. But they all refuse, especially Daphne, so the witch decides to teach Daphne a lesson, and she poofs, and with a puff of smoke, she vanishes away with Daphne. But the gang soon realize that afterwards that she fell through a trap door. Now, something about this trapdoor is weird because when you see Daphne disappear, the footmarks look like it's going backwards, like Daphne fell backwards. But when they go below and they pull on the trapdoor, it ends up going sideways. So it's a bit weird because and the thing still shows that Daphne slid backwards, but it's open sideways. So it's weird that, you know, it was angled like that. So they probably, I don't know if that was some animation error or what, but that was weird. But anyway, Scooby spots some footprints and he points it out to the rest of the gang. And so the rest of the gang decide to follow these footprints, and these footprints lead to a large riverboat anchored at the shore. And resting on the shore is the witch's zombies boat that they had used earlier. And they have been using like a steel-tipped pole to move through the water. The gang then decide to enter the riverboat, and they both split up, leading to Shaggy and Scooby, finding the zombie first. And the zombie chases them through the old saloon before they manage to escape. Meanwhile, Velma and Fred find a secret room with a winch, some power tools, and a sheet-covered bundle inside. Fred and Velma thinking it's a ghost, they pull off the sheet and find a bound and gagged Daphne, whom they quickly free, and Daphne tells them that the zombie, you know, took her away. The witch then once again appears and chases the trio down a coal chute. Scooby and Shaggy then encounter the witch and zombie and are trapped by them. So because they're trapped by the witch and zombie, they're forced to jump off the side of the boat until they crash through the deck of the bottom of the floor. Crash through the deck of the bottom floor into the room where Velma, Fred, and Daphne are.
Toads and snails and puppy dog tails, that's what zombies are made of. Sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what ugly old witches are made of. Hey, Scoob, I think we fooled them.
Yeah. Wrong.
Yeah, dumb zombie. Zoinks, he's got Scooby. Hang on, Scoob. Here's a Scooby snack to the rescue.
Bravo.
Uh-oh, go back. We're trapped between those two gruesomes. Look, the witch's broom. We win. Let's fly out of here, Scoob.
The gang all find a motorboat and speed away, wanting to escape from the riverboat. But as they're leaving, the witch appears and flies towards the gang. And it's on Shaggy. It lands on Shaggy, but Fred and everyone else realize, as well as Shaggy, they realize that it's just a rubber balloon that made the witch fly. As they're speeding away, Fred says the throttle gets stuck and that he can't stop it. So Scooby decides to anchor the boat, and the anchor lifts a robbed armored truck that had been sunk in the swamp, and it's loaded with money. So they finally hit the jackpot, and now they know what's going on. So now that they got all the pieces, Fred devises a trap to capture the witch and zombie. Shaggy and Scooby dress up in money sacks and this is a pretty funny scene as well, and then lure the witch and zombie to a tripwire, and then the witch and zombie promptly fall into a rolling cart and into the armored truck where Velma and Daphne will close the doors. The trap starts to work, but Scooby falls into the trap as well due to the fact that he gets stuck onto a branch on the ground or something like that, and can't get free. But it's alright because Shaggy manages to hook him with a fishing rod and pull him out just as the witch and zombie roll into the truck.
Look! The money! Money, money, money!
Here, Double Ugly, go buy yourself a new face. Let's go, Scooby!
Is the cart set up? Here they come.
It's all set. We're ready down here.
Now what'll we do?
When I yell duck, dive aside.
Now we've got you!
Duck! Oh no! Scooby Goo!
I'll ungoof him! Got him!
And we've got them.
Yay! Thanks to that fast fishing team of Shaggy and Scooby!
The zombie and witch are unmasked, and of course it is revealed to be Zeke and Zeb. And Zeke and Zeb had robbed the armored truck and swung it into the swamp years ago, and that's why they were doing what they were doing. But they couldn't remember where they had sunken it, so they searched the swamp with the iron-tipped pole. And the reason they dressed up as a witch and zombie was for that reason, to search for the truck, but to also scare intruders away so that no one would disturb them while they were looking for the truck or, snoop and get in their way. In the case if they had found the truck, had they, found the truck, then they would have used the winch to pull it out. And then, of course, Velma demonstrates how the witch used smoke bombs for her vanishing act whenever the witch needed to appear or disappear. So that wraps up this mystery, and with another mystery solved, the episode ends with Mystery Inc. going back on the road, and Scooby goes back to fishing in his bucket of water just like he was in the beginning. And Fred tells him to give up, thinking that he's not really going to find anything. But lo and behold, cartoon style, he pulls out a fish, and the rest of the gang cheer and laugh at his achievement. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 13 of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? 3 stars out of 5. So since this is a 3-star out of 5 episode, it really doesn't matter whether I start with the positives or the negatives, so I'm going to start with my positives for the episodes first. To start with, I think the first positive of this episode is, of course, the gang themselves. The gang have fantastic interactions and good chemistry in this episode, so that's obviously a good sign, as we want to see our characters, have a, do really well in this episode. We want to connect with them well, and they definitely do that well in this episode. The humor is also another positive, especially from Shaggy and Scooby, obviously, because they're the comedic duo, and they're awesome. They have great comedy, not just with each other, but with the villains as well, and that's great. But even Fred and Velma get a nice, funny interaction, on the riverboat when they're trying to find Daphne. I would say the next, major positive would be the mystery itself. I think the mystery of this episode was actually pretty interesting. As soon as we were definitely hooked. I would say that I got hooked, especially when, Zeke was telling the story of the witch and the zombie. That definitely, made me really, invested in, the mystery and, what was going to happen throughout the episode. I think the motives of them were great too, but it was great seeing, you know, what the witch and zombie were doing at the swamp and what were they after, and, you know, obviously who they were going to be. Were they real, or were they just people behind the mask? But of course, in this show, it's obviously someone behind the mask, which is what I like. I like them when they're behind the mask and not, you know, real. Like I said, the motives was good. It was a money motive, as usual, but I think this time it wasn't as bad as the last episode. This episode, I think, did it well because they were criminals who robbed an armored truck, put it in the swamp because they were going to get caught, and they couldn't figure out where they had hid it, so they were using the legends of the witch and the zombie. They created them to scare intruders away so they could, you know, get the money. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that was a unique way of, you know, using that legend and, you know, showing what these characters had done, you know, why they were being a witch and a zombie and what their motives were. I think Zeke was good out of costume, and the reason I say that is because, like I said earlier, he did a good job setting up the story of the witch and the zombie. And I know most, you know, villains out of costume tend to do that. They tend to tell the stories of the villains they're portraying. But I think this time it works because they're not just telling the gang. We also get to see a flashback of him and Zeb going through the swamp, you know, hunting for frogs, and seeing the witch conjure up the zombie. And seeing that was pretty cool. Visualizing it and giving us some visual aid for it was definitely really cool and helped me, you know, make me even more interested. So they did a really good job of Zeke setting up, you know, the story of the witch and zombie, and he did a good job out of costume. But that's all I got for positives, so let's get on with the negatives. To start off with the negatives, now I did say Zeke was really good, but on the other hand, Zeb was not. And I think the problem with Zeb out of costume is that he never got any moments to shine or any lines to say. We only saw him in a flashback, a voodoo doll of him, and when he got unmasked at the end. We never got to see him have any moments out of costume. We never got to learn anything from him. And it's a shame because it would have been cool to have both of the villains be good out of costume and not just in their costumes. But obviously, Zeb just wasn't good at it out of costume as Zeke was, but that was just due to the fact that he just didn't get any screen time to say anything or do anything, you know, interesting. I'd also say that the major negative I've had with this episode is the villains themselves. The witch and the zombie are not compelling in the slightest. Despite the mystery being really good, I think the witch and zombie themselves aren't good, compelling villains. I think they each have one good aspect to them. The witch has a great laugh, and the zombie has a great moment. But other than that, they are not funny or scary in the slightest. They don't have anything that makes them stand out from the other Where Are You villains, or any Scooby-Doo villains in general. Nothing that makes them unique or stand out. They're pretty bland and, you know, boring and don't have anything, you know, to make them a unique witch and zombie. So they're definitely not that great of villains. I think also another negative I have is the lack of suspects in this episode. The fact that Zeb and Zeke are the only suspects in this episode does make the outcome predictable. And I know I'm talking about, you know, Mystery of Scooby-Doo, which is a family children's cartoon for family, the whole family. But even then, I feel like it's worth saying that it's not hard to add an extra guy or two to help make the mystery more, you know, better. I think if it was one villain, it would be fine, but the fact that it's two villains, you know, it's obvious that it was going to be Zeb and Zeke, unless if they were to pull an unknown, which you guys obviously know I'm not a fan of unknown people because we don't get to learn anything about them and we don't get a chance to guess if they're the villain. But thankfully they didn't do that, and, you know, I'm really glad that they didn't because it would have ruined it for me. But I think that's what drags it down, though. If we had maybe, if there were more suspects basically in this episode, if it maybe was increased one or two more people, and had, you know, the villains been a bit more stronger, I think the episode would have, you know, been a lot higher. But overall, I would say I would recommend this episode to fans and newcomers to the show. I do agree with most fans of Scooby-Doo Where Are You and Scooby-Doo in general that this is an average episode of the show. I think it is watchable, and I certainly don't. I think it's good. It's more on the good side than it is bad, but I still think it's average, and it's really just the villain department that keeps it down and keeps it, you know, from being really good. But I would definitely say that this at least deserves a viewing from Scooby-Doo fans and newcomers. At least give it a watch and form your own opinion whether you think the same like me or if maybe you think differently. But I would say give this episode a chance. It's definitely at least watchable. Just don't expect, you know, a really good episode in the Where Are You series. This is not one I tend to go back to very often. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you somewhere in the middle like me? You know, I would love, I'm curious for your thoughts, so please leave a comment and let me know. And subscribe for more, you know, Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have polls for future videos, updates for both of my channels, and discussions about things that we talk about on both of my channels. And Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my playthrough of the 2018 Spider-Man video game with Part 8 of the Let's Play. So if you're interested in that, then be on the lookout. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace out.